Alright, hi and welcome to another very exciting episode of the Android video tutorial series. I'm your host, Matthias Reich, and today we're going to take a look at the alert dialog. Now, the alert dialog is some kind of user notification, but what's different in comparison to, for example, the toast messages is that you have actually the ability to interact with your application. So think of an alert dialog as a typical message box that you get when you're in some kind of application and you want to, for example, close a document. Then a little message box pops up asking you whether you want to save the document or not. And an alert dialog is basically that message box. All right. Now, as you can imagine, those alert dialogs can come in handy in many situations, and the best thing about them is they're actually very easy to create. Alright, so let's get started. I already pre-created some stuff for today's episode in order to save some time and to focus on the creation of the alert dialog. So here's what we got so far. As you can see, it's a very simple application. We have an edit text view up here, and then below that edit text view, two buttons. One says add 7 and the other one says reset. So as you might guess, when you click the add 7 button, it will add 7 and print out the result in this edit text view, right? So when you click the reset button, nothing happens yet. Because what I like to do is when the user actually presses the reset button, I want to show an alert dialog that asks if the user is really sure that he wants to reset. And then I want to have two buttons, one labeled yes and one labeled no. And only if the user clicks the yes button, the application should reset that value in that edit text view up here. Alright, so let's take a look at how that is created. Alright, so here we are in Eclipse, and I just want to quickly go over the things I already created. So here we are in our main XML, in our main layout. As you can see, it's nothing fancy, nothing new. As you can see, we have our edit text view up here, and then below that edit text view we have a linear layout containing two buttons that are labeled add 7 and reset. Now the strings for the button labels are actually inside that strings XML. As you can see here, defined two strings, add and reset. Yeah, and that is pretty much everything there's to say about the layout. Now, I also created some source code already in our Java file. What I did, I created two global variables, one for the edit text and one integer that will hold the sum. And in our onCreate method, I already assigned those UI elements from the layout to those variables. As you can see here, I created two buttons as a local variable. And to those buttons, I already assigned two separate on-click listeners. So for the add button, as you can see here, what I do in that on-click method of the on-click listener is I add 7 to that sum, right, which we initialized to be 0 up here, and then I just print out the result into that edit text view by simply calling the setText method of that edit text view, right? So that's really simple. And also I created an on-click listener for the reset button, which, as you can see here, is currently empty and therefore does nothing. Alright, so let's just get started with the creation of the alert dialog. Now, the easiest way to create an alert dialog is by using the alert dialog builder helper class. Alright, so that's a class that helps you building alert dialogs. You will understand what I mean in a second, but first let's come up here to our global variables and then we want to add a line, and we want to write alert dialog dot and builder space, and then we'll name that builder. Okay, and then we want to create another global variable of the type alert dialog, and we simply want to call that alert. Alright, so as you can see, we needed to import those classes, and as you can see, Eclipse did that for us, right? Now, the concept behind this is that you use the alert dialog builder helper class to actually define and build the alert dialog, and then you use the alert dialog class, or the variable we created for it, to actually display it on screen. Alright, so let's start by defining and building our dialog. So you want to come down here right after we assigned the UI elements to our variables, and you want to type the following: builder is equal to new alert dialog dot builder, open parentheses, and now it wants to know the context of the application or the activity that will display the alert dialog, and since we want to display it in this activity, we'll just pass this as a parameter. Alright, the next thing we want to do is we want to actually set the message of that dialog, right? So our message in our case is simply, do you really want to reset? Question mark. Okay, and on the next line we say builder dot set cancelable to false. Oops, cancelable to false. And what this does is it prevents the user from canceling the dialog, so he is forced to either click yes or no to exit the dialog, right? Okay, so in the next line we actually have to define the buttons that we want to show inside that alert dialog, right? So there are two methods. One is called set positive button, and the first thing is our label for that button. We just label it yes, and the second argument is actually an on-click listener that defines what will happen if you click on that yes button. And instead of using our well-known on-click listener that is defined in the Android view class, we actually have to use a different on-click listener, and that one is defined in the dialog interface class. So we type new dialog interface dot on click listener, and when you hit enter, it'll automatically create the whole method for you. Alright, simply have to add a semicolon at the end, and then we can go into that on click method, and right here we want to actually set the sum to 0. And then we want to output that new result or the new sum into our edit text view. So we call et sum dot set text is sum dot to string. Alright. And then we can actually output a quick toast message. Make text. Get application context. Now this should be familiar to you because we talked about the toast messages in episode number 6, where we talked about notification using toast messages. And I want to show that for a short time and create a new line here, and then we show that. Alright, so this is our behavior for our positive, our yes button. Fairly simple. We set the sum to 0 and then output that new sum, which is 0, into the edit text view, and then we display a short toast message saying that we're done resetting, right? And now we have to implement the behavior for the negative button. So we'll type builder dot set negative button, and we want to label that with no, and we will create a new on click listener again. On click listener, right? And in this listener, oh, I forgot the semicolon here. So in this onClick method, we actually want to just close the dialog without doing anything else. And this is really simple because we just have to call the cancel method of the dialog interface. And as you can see here, the dialog interface is a parameter to that onClick method. So we simply type dialog dot, and you can see the first method here is cancel. And that'll close our dialog, right? Pretty simple. So that's all there is to do to that set negative button. And the last thing we want to do is we want to actually build or create that alert dialog now. And to do that, we simply type alert is equal to builder dot create. So what this does, it compiles or sort of compiles all the information we specified up here in that builder class, and it will create an alert dialog that behaves exactly like we defined up here. And then it will assign that sort of pre-compiled dialog to our alert variable, which we defined up here, right? So now we have our alert dialog ready, and we can actually show it to the user if he clicks on that reset button. And to do that, you want to come down here to our onClick listener for that reset button inside that onClick method. And now to bring that dialog up on screen, you simply type alert.show semicolon. And this is pretty much everything there is to do. So now you can save your file, and we can test the application now. So just click on that green arrow here and choose Run as an Android application. Alright, so here we are in our Android emulator with our application. As you can see, still looks the same. And we can click that button here, Add 7. And now if we click that reset button, as you can see, there's a dialog that asks, do you really want to reset? Now if we click the no button, it'll go back to our application and nothing happens. So we can continue adding 7s. And if we call or click reset again, and we actually click on yes, as you can see, the sum goes to 0, and down here there was a little toast message. And yeah, that's pretty much everything there is to those simple alert dialogues. As I said, they're really easy to create and very powerful, and they add a great deal of user interactivity to your application. Alright, so I hope you found this tutorial useful, and in the next episode we'll probably continue to talk about lists. And if you have any questions about this episode, feel free to comment on the blog. You can also find the project files for this episode on the blog for download at www.extensivearts.com. And also, if you have any suggestions on how to improve these tutorials, feel free to comment on the blog. And I hope you guys tune in to the next episode. Until then, happy coding, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.